Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Merry
Hello,
Christmas.
hello everyone. Welcome. How are we doing, boys and girls? What's up? What's up? Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Hear me loud and clear? Are we coming through? Where's my trailer? Asks Zunzon. There is no
Trailer for what?
trailer for what? Exactly. What are you talking about? This is the Christmas cheer stream. What did you expect? Were your expectations other than... Hi, good to see you guys. What's up? What are we doing? Are we all in a good mood? Are we all doing well? How y'all been? How are we? Are we good?
Perhaps. Who knows?
Welcome to the Haven and Hearth 2021 Christmas stream. I am Jorb.
I am Loftar.
This is Loftar. We are the dynamic developer duo behind the the critically acclaimed MMORPG Haven and Hearth. You can find it at havenandhearth.com. It is a freeform, open world crafting sandbox MMORPG. And yeah, we're I don't know what we're doing. We're answering the usual questions and fumbling around, shooting the breeze. Not sure we have a really clear idea of what we want to do, so if you want to have some influence over that, feel free to suggest. We can maybe paint and draw and such things. Should the feeling to do so come upon us. How are we doing, man? Are you good?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am. Are you good?
Nah.
You're not.
It's one ever.
It's one. You've given up. That's how jaded this man is. He's past it all. I'm pretty good. Winter has returned to not so sunny Sweden. Pretty, actually decent winter temperatures in Sweden.
At this very moment.
At this very moment, yes. The past few days have been rather balmy, but we're back with chiller winds and some snow, so pretty excited for that. Zodiac 331 asks, any update on controlled objects? We could do perhaps a little intro, because I've noticed that there's a fair amount of confusion on this point when I've been talking to the boys in various channels. There's some confusion still as to what object-controlled objects really is. So maybe I think there is, yes. So maybe I heard someone launch deep into the conspiracy theory that it had something to do with wolf packs and wolves being controlled by other wolves.
Well, that would not be the case.
That would not be the case at all. So why don't you have take a little spiel on what object-controlled objects are and why the user is asking about them?
Well, I mean, the basic idea is rather to, how do you actually express that? I mean, it's the idea that that objects can basically, I guess, stand on other objects, so that like when you use a raft, you don't necessarily just mount it on a fixed position, but you can actually walk around in the raft and such things. Other potential things that might be in its future might be such things as buildable bridges or freeform house building, I guess.
Indeed, freeform house building is the main draw point for me, at least. Though there are other cool things as well, as being able to walk on the ship docks and wagon stations and such would be the kind of thing. So that's one of the bigger projects that we're working on, or rather that you're working on. Yeah. So how are we doing with that? How's it going, man?
I mean, good question, I guess. It's somewhat slow progress, because I'm constantly encountering ad hoc interactions with existing systems.
Like what kind of ad hoc interactions with existing systems could you exemplify?
What would be an example? I mean, like there are tons of different little, since it involves basic object positions, there are tons of little interactions everywhere. Like just if if crops are looking for beehives, do they look inside wagons for beehives? Do they look inside garden sheds for beehives and such things and so on? And I mean, that's just one example. There are tons of similar little interactions here and there that are often kind of difficult to have a good answer to, and I don't really want to just force some solution and end up in a worse place later down the road.
Exactly. So Zented69 says, we're asking you like 3 years into the project, that was supposed to take a few months. Well, it's going slow. I don't know that it was ever supposed to take a few months.
No, but I also don't think it began 3 years ago.
No, it didn't begin 3 years ago. So you're off on your timing there, sir. Senzet. Calling BS on that one. We didn't get the water strider. Oof. I'm getting trolled by this water strider. So no, that is not the case. But in any event, it's been a bit of a slog, and understandably, perhaps so. There's a fair amount to it because
I probably suck a fair bit too, to be fair, but
yeah,
there is a fair bit to
no
it.
doubt. But there's a fair bit to it. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it involves like
Everything.
Yeah, every conceivable interaction between various objects and how they relate to other objects inside other objects.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the basic kind of ideas is that, at least down the road, we want to make it so that like objects can effectively. I mean, the basic pitch is that objects can own or control other objects, or have them so that objects can
be the base, or be the base of their position, so to speak.
Exactly, be the base of their position rather than the world being the base of their position, because right now everything is placed in the world only. Mm-hmm. So in this new paradigm, ideally, or at least that's the grand idea, objects would be able to be given a position relative to another object, quite simply.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and that obviously gives you. I mean, hit testing is probably a nightmare there.
Yeah,
right?
to be sure. I mean, there are various weird interactions there as well in terms of like just what objects should be hit tested against what other objects.
Yeah, like you gave the example of a person standing on a raft, and then there are like objects on the raft, and he needs to hit test against those objects, but when the raft moves.
Well, I mean, let's put it like I mean, for instance, like if you consider the edge of a wagon station or a car dock,
mm-hmm.
where you just walk across them, then obviously objects on both sides of that edge, being controlled by different objects of the world, should be hit tested against each other.
Yep.
But I mean, on the other hand, if we were ever to implement such a thing as suspension bridges.
Yeah.
That's not the right word, is it? Suspension bridges.
I think it's a fine word to use. We'll call it's a suspension bridge. You can say suspension.
Surely a suspension bridge is one of these that are like the Golden Gate Bridge.
That is true. The Golden Gate Bridge is a suspension bridge. You mean like a
what do you call those?
Like a rope,
like a rope bridge.
Yeah. It's like strung across a chasm.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, in that case, for example, you obviously wouldn't want objects standing on the ground below it to be tested against objects on the bridge itself.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they should be tested against again on both sides of the edge of the bridge, and there are many such examples.
Some delicate questions there to consider, to be sure, and also. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I mean that even kind of opens up the even bigger question of like a more full 3D representation in general of the height in the game.
It asks that question at least.
At least it threatens to open that question.
Yeah.
So there's a fair bit to it, but you're farther along than you have been, right?
Yeah, I'm farther along than I have been. I mean, I have an actual branch for it now, at least.
Exactly. So you're writing actual code. This is not you just gazing into your navel and contemplating this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Exactly. So that's a bit of a status update on that, I guess. It is what it is. Great programming, such as this man's programming, demands time and respect and everything. So it's going to be great. Where Haven is going to be great once we get that done, right? That fixes Haven, right?
That makes Haven great again.
Mm-hmm. John Fugati says, Jorb, Merry Christmas. I hope you and Loftar are both celebrating the birth of Christ and have a good one. Certainly, always. Never anything other than that. We're always joyous and grateful at our Lord and Savior who died on the cross for our sins. And Jesus is the reason for the season, lest we forget. It's not about the presents, it's about the return of light to the world. So definitely. Thank you, John Fugati, for reminding us all. Look, I found a coracle. Ballers! I found a coracle, man. Loftar is done pondering his orb. Have you seen the ponder the orb memes?
No, I have not. That is something I have missed.
It's the latest and greatest meme.
I see.
I don't really know what the meme is about, but it's about a wizard pondering an orb. So have you ever?
What?
You will have to Google this.
Apparently.
Know your meme. Waffle Cat says, "Boomers, ouch,
Ouch.
ouch."
Because I didn't know that meme.
Probably. Ethan R asks,
I'm sure it's just a Reddit meme anyway.
No, I don't know. No, I don't think it's a Reddit meme actually. No.
Oh, it's a Facebook meme.
No, jeez. No. Who's on Facebook? Haven and Hearth is on Facebook. Follow us, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. We're on Facebook still. Meta. We're on Meta.
Oh, right, of course. No, technically it is.
I know. It's still called Facebook. But I don't know if the rest. I don't know if chat watched Mark Zuckerberg's presentation on Meta. It was pretty cringe. Wouldn't you say?
It was a special kind of cringe. I mean, you always know that it begins well when comments and ratings are turned off.
Yeah.
Not that is apparently necessary any longer with the dislike.
Yeah, the dislike feature on YouTube was removed. A blessing for the Haven and Hearth channel. I'll tell you that much. Kidding. We mostly get likes, so that was a joke. No, but it was really bad. Like, if he's trying to convince me, if Mark Zuckerberg is trying to convince me that he's not a robot, he didn't do a great job at that, did he?
that at least is for sure. I mean, corporate presentations aren't exactly known for their good acting, but that was something extra.
It was pretty good. Average Benny says, show us real gameplay. Visit some markets, hunt some wild animals. We want to see troll fight, whale fight, orca battle. But that would require cheating. I mean, I kind of want to oblige, but that would require some cheating. Cheating, dog.
Not to mention, I don't think any of us are able to do any whale or troll battles.
No, I mean, fun story, true story. Never have dealt with either whales, nor trolls, nor orcas. So, I'm not the man
you're
looking for. Exactly. Exactly. Surprised I'm not dying. To troll is gameplay. I can believe it. So how do we feel about other things? What have we done recently with the game? We have re-enabled charter stones. That was a thing.
That was a thing.
So how do we feel about that? How did we reason about that? How do you feel about that now?
Still not sure, to be honest. I think the fact that you have to travel from a thing wall allays at least most of my fears about closed autist loops.
Right. People basically having.
That being said, I mean the balance between fast travel and convenience versus locality is always a good question, I think, and I rarely have a well-defined opinion on the matter.
Zented69 says, I think we feel abused. You keep removing fun and then giving it back and asking for praise.
I don't think we ever asked for praise, to be honest.
I think we asked for praise. I think that's your interpretation, sir. But do we just remove the fun for you? Is that really your key takeaway? Maybe we have been removing some fun, but we've added some fun back. So give us praise.
Indeed.
I don't know. I'm enthusiastic about the change. I think it was a good change. So I visited a market on my real character, so that was fun. Even bought a sword, so that helped.
I mean, it is nice to have the common markets for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the whole community building aspect and whatnot, I think is pretty key. And
It's pretty important, to be sure.
Yeah, being able to visit your friends and such what's. Now they are. Could we get some thoughts on what your goals are pertaining to H&H as a game project? Is that as a game project as opposed to something else that Haven also is, or I don't know. Yeah,
I guess he's just asking for the broad strokes.
Yeah, probably. I mean, my usual story is that Haven was largely born out of my disappointment with World of Warcraft. I've told this story before, but I had a demoralizing interaction when I had recently in World of Warcraft. This was like
recently,
2004, like 20 years ago. I'd killed a boss monster, and I watched it respawn before my eyes, like 10 seconds later, and that was I was like, yeah. And I was really hyped for World of Warcraft when it first released, because I like StarCraft and I like Warcraft and I like the building aspects of those games, and I had kind of envisioned and hoped that there would be a permeable and mutable world.
And that was very much not the case.
That was very much not the case. So it was a digital theme park, basically. And that's not what I wanted.
I mean, in hindsight, it's kind of weird that they even called it Warcraft, since it has. I get that it inherits the lore and everything. But it's quite different from the from the games that were called Warcraft.
Yeah, but they called it World of Warcraft.
I know.
Jeez, get with your branding skills, dog. I think it was just it's just the lore.
I guess I just find it weird when I hear people talk about Warcraft and they don't actually mean a strategy game.
Right. No, so I suppose the vision for Haven has always been to provide a more permanent experience, quite simply, and that's kind of still the main goal. But in terms of longer term goals that we still want to achieve, I suppose object controlled objects is the biggest one.
And of course, we've been wasting a lot of time on the Quest Giver retake lately.
Yeah, have we been wasting time though?
Good question, perhaps, but we've been spending a lot of time.
We've been spending a lot of time on it, but I wouldn't call it wasting quite yet.
To be sure.
I don't know. It's still a ways off, but I think it will eventually end up being some sort of an improvement, at least. So I think it's fine, and we've done other things as well. There have been other patches, and we've had pretty good feedback on the latest couple of patches, so I'm happy about that. So if you guys have anything that you want to see addressed, but then feel free to post in chat stuff that you want, like your biggest pet peeves with stuff in game. I think one of the kind of things about the development is that we make a change, and then we just get kind of desensitized to that change, and we forget about it, and then we also forget that people kind of hate the change, and that it should never have been made or whatever. I think that's a dynamic that has been kind of real. Like crop circles, for example. Like I was never so wed to crop circles that they had needed to be in the game for as long as they were.
No, to be sure.
So.
In the particular case of crop circles, I think my greatest. It's certainly true that we added them mostly as an experiment to see how they worked. So it's not like we were really actually invested in them. I think my greatest gripe with removing them was just that I didn't feel we had a good analysis of why they were bad.
I was pretty satisfied with my analysis of why they were bad. So. I'm not sure.
I don't remember the details of that conversation, but
it was, having to gather 1,000,000 heartwood leaves and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. I thought that was not so nice, but any news on Quest Giver update? Not really, maybe. Drunken Jacob says, can we have some sort of less OP metal spiraling again?
we have been discussing that.
Yeah,
we want to add something like that.
Yeah,
but we're not exactly sure just.
We had a conversation about that, inspired by Childhood Obesity's thread on the subject. He wrote a thread on the subject, a fairly extensive wall of text on this subject a while ago, and we had a long talk about that one. And basically his take was that we should bring back metal spiraling in some form, and I'm tempted to agree with his analysis, or at least
in actual fact, I think there should probably be more spirals than that.
Probably.
It's just kind of a good question exactly where and what kind of shape they should take.
Yeah. So we are definitely considering.
I have to admit that I don't exactly remember all the specific details about what we thought was bad with metal spiraling, to be honest.
Bug Chingy asks, as a newish player, what is metal spiraling? Basically, it was a mechanic by which you could trade quantity for quality on iron.
I guess you could say that. I mean, the main thing that enabled it, I think, was that when pounding wrought iron, the quality of the anvil would increase the quality of the metal if the quality of the anvil was higher.
Yeah.
And so you can basically take bad metal and bring it up to the quality that you have, so to speak.
Yeah. And
that, along with the lucky strike rolls, which are still present, enable you to more or less continuously spiral metal quality upwards. Exactly. And I think we had legitimate concerns with that system.
Yeah.
But there should probably be a replacement for it.
Yep.
I mean, generally speaking, we've probably been moving towards, rather, I guess, fixed quality caps for various industries here and there, in ways that are perhaps not only sound.
Yeah. So, and that was another thing. Like, we removed metal spiraling, and was that between World 11 and 12, or between 12 and? It was not between 12 and 13. Certainly, it was between.
Could even be
10, 11, 10 to 11, maybe. Yeah.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
So. Adding on to that, do you want to keep H&H as a sandbox PvP game that it seems to be right now, or is the vision to be something else? For me, PvP is a feature of the game. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the defining feature of the game.
The feature of the game. So.
I mean, the defining feature of the game is again to be able to have a meaningful and lasting impact on the world, I think.
Yeah.
Which includes political interactions, from which it is hard to separate PvP.
Yeah, and also I think that the whole being able to build in the game and having an actual permanent world, etc., requires some means of conflict resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
And fighting is such a means, because otherwise griefing takes many forms, and
ganking others is only one of those.
Exactly. So for that reason, I think this genre of game, this particular game, is difficult to have without. I couldn't really envision what Haven would be like without PvP in some form.
Yeah,
I foresee a lot of trolling, and I foresee a lot of griefing. People
that has no way of resolution.
Yeah. So Zion says, have you considered adding more endgame PvE content, if that's the case?
We have. I guess with the main thing we're stuck on there is really the bad animal AI, really.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a project in itself, and also kind of interacts with with the combat system as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the animal AI should probably be rewritten, and
It should, but there's also a case that the combat system should have another rewrite.
the combat system most definitely should have another rewrite.
And it is not entirely obvious how much we want to invest in the current AI if it turns out that we'll have to replace it completely with the next combat rewrite anyway.
So combat system rewrite. Is it time? Are we there yet? So for those not in the loop, we've had like, I don't know, 3-4 failed attempts at rewriting the combat system.
Yeah.
So that have not panned out for various reasons, but that we nevertheless spent a fair amount of time on. So we're somewhat weary of
there's that, but we're also waiting on having the next good idea for combat system, I guess.
Snuggle Snail H&H says, what do you guys not like about the current combat system? I think it's far too goldfishy. I think you basically, I mean, I get that it probably works a lot better in PvP.
It probably works better in PvP than in PvE for sure.
In PvE, but in
PvE it works kind of really badly.
It's pretty bad. So I think, and it's far too goldfishy. You basically never have to care about what the animal does. And you never really have to care about what you do either. Like it's pretty much, you use 2 or 3 maneuvers.
That being said, I guess for PvP, I don't really know where we stand right now, and like how much skill is really involved versus just stats.
Yeah, I don't know that either actually. Why don't you use AWS services to make faster game with no lag with a lot of people at SME time?
I don't see why AWS would be faster than Hetzner.
Exactly. I don't think there's any general. Vigilance says, I think we're all just generally very afraid of you guys making another stinking heap for a combat system, and this current one just works just fine, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it could be worse. MT Pillow says, I love the philosophy, but in practice, PvP seems to be the defining thing that polarizes your player base, rather than just having it as a mechanic that allows for conflict resolution. Maybe, I don't know about that. Is it the defining thing? I mean, I'm sure it's a polarizing feature.
I'm sure it's a polarizing feature for sure.
See you there.
I mean, I'm sure it's a polarizing feature, no doubt, but that's the nature of conflict resolution, I think.
Zented69 says, you guys seem to be really removed and uninspired by PvP, yet you seem to really develop the game around it. Since this is an alpha game, let's try a PvP-less world.
I mean, what would a PvP-less world even mean? What do you do then when someone just stands in front of your gate?
Yeah, I mean, how do you handle the griefing? I mean, it's easy to suggest, but like, what is the actual solution for the obvious known problems that we're going to have? Like, people spam, me
what
building.
When someone just builds a palisade around your base?
Yeah, exactly. I set up a shitty bot that builds a palisade around your base. What do you do then? Like, I don't know. It seems, I don't really know. I mean, to me, PvP fills a purpose and a function. It has a function in the game in terms of giving people the means to deal with the nastiness of other people. And
of course inflict nastiness as well.
Yeah.
But
PvP more world is a solution. I'm tempted at times.
What? PvP more?
As opposed to a PvP less.
Oh.
He suggested a PvP more.
Right.
World. There is some manual or source code to make personalized client, asks Satanic Chihuahua. Yes, there is. The client is open source, so you can.
I think that's on the FAQ page on the home page.
Sif Muna asks, why on God's green flat Earth does agility scale combat speed linearly?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. There's a square root involved there, right?
Yeah.
Is it even a third root?
I think it's a fourth root,
Which
involves, which translates into a square root on the other side of things, but
right.
but it's certainly not linear, at least.
So it's not linear. calling BS on that, sir. What are your thoughts? There's no new world. We haven't announced a new world. The Dakan is trolling. Average Benny says, what are your thoughts on about some sort of gameplay testing system? A/B staging server.
I mean, we've tried those kinds of things. It's really difficult to make that work right.
Yeah, and I mean, basically that.
I mean, if people don't actually play for real on the staging server, then the testing will never be meaningful.
Yeah, so people would have to play for reals on the testing server. So basically, by doing that, we would be bifurcating the.
You would basically just have two real servers in the end.
We would have two real servers, and I don't think we would get much less rage when we make mistakes.
When we break the test server.
Exactly. So we break the test server. I mean, our initial kind of feeling about things was that the main server is the test server. It's the perpetual test server.
Indeed.
So, game being an internal alpha and all that, but yeah. So
I mean, we've done these kinds of things with the combat systems and stuff.
And I think that's more fine. Like if you have an isolated
sure.
feature like that you want to test specifically.
To be sure, I'm just saying that even that test worked moderately well, I'd say.
That is true. Because it's also the case, like if you have a limited test server, then people don't care about it. Like no one is going to play it if it's limited feature-wise in any way, and if it's not limited feature-wise in any way, it's another real server. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a difficult. Zion says, have you guys discussed some of the more grindy OP stat gaining methods, such as pepper, truffles, whales, and mitigating the gap by either reducing tedium in those mechanics, spawn rate, crafting quantity, etc., or adding stat caps?
We did adjust pepper recently.
We did adjust pepper recently.
And we've been talking about whale changes, but some of them are hard to affect at least.
Yeah. Zented69 says, is this some kind of aggressive prank, or do you actually design the same witch hat from scratch all 30 times instead of just reskinning it? It's not the same. It's there's several differences here in terms of the radius of the brim here and all kinds of things. It's like it's you who have no appreciation for fine arts. Please, you're talking to a professional here. Snuggles Thale says, please don't make a whales dungeon that's going to require a whole faction to clear and funnel the meat to a miner. Okay, so should we in general not make dungeons that require a faction to clear? Because that seems kind of boring. Though I mean I suppose the rewards of dungeons can certainly be debated.
Indeed.
So, whoops. But I mean one of the kind of points of dungeons was that there should be like some of at least the higher tier ones should more or less require more people. I mean that was at least one of my
to be sure. Seems
ideas about it. So, can you answer the question about OP stat gaming? Yeah, I mean we talked about it. Like pepper we did adjust recently. Not sure if enough. It was revealed to me that one of the bigger things about pepper is actually using it as a spice in recipes, which is apparently a good thing to do. Something I wasn't aware of. So Indeed. That's one thing. I had it pitched to me the other day that whales are actually a good catch-up mechanic. Not sure if if this is true.
The thing with whales, people tend to suggest that they should just be nerfed. And I don't really like that idea simply because, it kind of implies that everything should be nerfed to mediocrity.
Yeah.
I think it would be more fun to... I think the real problem with whales isn't necessarily how OP their meat and stuff is, but rather how, the mechanism for obtaining them.
Yeah. I mean, that's arguably that is the real problem with whales, I think, and arguably with many of the higher tier animals in general, is that the method to obtain them is to check the map. It's basically a form of foraging, and that is something that lends itself well to botting and alting, so which leads to whale bots, especially, and there have been angler bots and mammoth bots and whatnot too. So Lord Grunt says at least nerf whales in their quality rather than food boons. That could be perhaps an argument.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying they aren't OP. It could be that they should be nerfed. I'm just not sure that's the patent solution to fixing them.
No. Nearlotta says, why can't we smoke cheese? Because several reasons. It's like it would require another layer to the already pretty intense cheese spreadsheet, and I mean the server in-game the server support for doing those types of things isn't.
I mean,
perfect,
handling these sorts of combinatorial features in foods isn't entirely optimal.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but
I've suggested it a couple of times. So the discussion on smoked cheese is very much alive. I would like to see smoked tea as well. That would be cool. Mount Pillow says, could we crowdfund an experiment where you make a server without PvP and see how many players would rather live with being griefed versus being killed and having their bases destroyed? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not super excited, but I don't know. Maybe you should never say never, I guess.
I mean, it's not like it's completely out of the question, but I can't really say that. Let's just say I haven't exactly had that idea presented to me in a way that excites me.
No, me neither. And it seems that it seems like in the back of my mind I have a feeling that I've seen that movie before and I don't like it. I mean, back in like World 1 and 2, the game lacked several features like the ability to destroy objects and whatnot. So in a sense, it was PvP less in some ways, and that didn't, produce like great results exactly.
I wouldn't say that, no.
There was a lot of problems with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what doesn't excite you about that? Precisely what I keep returning to the same point. It's that. I mean,
you always end up with some sort of conflict resolution. It's just that
how do we resolve conflict?
It seems that it will devolve into just far more retarded things.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that I kind of like about the gratuitous violence that we now sometimes see in the game is that at least it's thematic, so to speak. I mean, if this is Dark Age Magna Europa, then violence has a place. But like, just building palisades around other people's houses and building, the types of non-violent griefing that you can most certainly do, like setting up offensive private claims near other bases, these types of things. My imagination is not cruel and wicked enough to imagine all the demonically inspired things that I'm sure people could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if it's the case that if you private claim something in the game, then no player can ever touch that, then I think that's going to lead to problems. I think.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, it's kind of difficult to destroy a private claim already as it is, so I'm not sure how big of a problem perhaps, but I don't know.
I just can't see it ending well.
I can't see it ending well either, and I suspect that down that road lies game moderators.
Yeah,
I mean that seems to be the alternative means of conflict resolution. It seems to be a beeline toward
game moderation.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want in-game moderation performed by humans. I want the game to be mechanically sound, if that's even possible. I mean, landing a man on the moon is probably easier than building a functioning
mechanically sound MMO.
A mechanically sound MMO with like open sign-in and whatnot. So yeah. So if there are any young prospective game devs out there with a great idea for an MMO, I would just suggest building a single player game instead. So it's going to be easier. It's going to be less headaches for you. Please invest more money and time into marketing. More people is good.
I guess that depends on what people, doesn't it?
Kind of. But I also think I don't know. I don't think it's a question about money. I don't like advertising in general. So
That, to be sure, I'm just saying that like if we were to use Google AdWords or something, then I'm not sure we would attract the right audience.
no, especially as long as the game is as kind of hardcore as it is. I think I don't know. I don't know how many Facebook moms we need in the game. I mean, not to bash on any particular demographic, but like I think.
I don't think we need none of them.
No, honestly, I think they would be great for the game in a certain sense. It's just that I think they could perhaps end up having a negative experience and never play the game again. I don't know. I mean, can you release the game on Steam? That will give a bigger player base. Yes, that is possible to do, but it raises several questions that I'm not in any rush to answer. Like it answers like do people who connect to the game via Steam play on the same server, etc., etc. And I also, like when we do world resets, at least for the past couple of years when we've done them, we have during peak hours on reset day, we've kind of filled the server to capacity.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I obviously. We have a trail off of players. People play the game when it's new and fresh after a world reset, but then they kind of tend to drop off, as is evident right now, and that sucks. Not fun at all. So right now, obviously, it would be great to have more players, but again, during a world reset, we're kind of filled to capacity. So at that point, I'm not sure. We need that many more players.
There's at least some kind of case to be made that we need a parallelized server before we do the Steam release.
Which is one of the projects that is kind of in the pipe, is a parallelization of the server. But that's after object-controlled objects. Will there be another time shift before holidays, or can we count on winter claiming right day now? Yeah, I mean, we're not going to change the time again. We changed it once to make sure that we had a white Christmas in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the only reason. So yep. We're not. We need more content for late game. I agree with that. If you want more players, why do you actively develop the game to please the people who are pushing new players away?
That's not the way we think of it.
That's not what we envision ourselves doing. How would you develop it differently? What would you do differently? Do you think is your gripe here that PvP should be removed, or? I mean, because that's fine. Have that opinion that PvP should be removed, but then what is your alternative means of conflict resolution in the game? How do you address that? I think that needs to be addressed before you suggest removing PvP. It's easy to say remove PvP. What do you replace it with? Are we talking game moderators, or like what's your suggestion?
Then again, he might have some more specific complaints, like the red-handed changes or whatever. Who knows?
That could also be the case. But we mitigated those, so I don't know. I don't know. Like honestly. May not seem like it, but I kind of try to take in what I perceive to be consensus views. That's what I try to kind of sift and filter out when I read feedback. I try to kind of get a feeling for what most people think. Obviously, I need to agree with the idea as well, or at least convince myself that it's a good idea, or convince us both that it's a good idea. So. I don't know. It's kind of difficult. Like people say, "Oh, you never listen to anyone." It's like I don't know, dude. Like I listen to a lot of people, and it's just that you have like chittering voices. It's still like you have 10,000 people saying. Maybe I'm exaggerating our player base there, but like you have X people saying a variety of different things, and like often they disagree. Like so often listening to one player means not listening to another player. So. I don't know. We don't really think of ourselves as developing. When you make changes to combat on month 8, you are only getting feedback from a very tiny niche of people. Sure, but that's always going to be the case, though, isn't it? I guess
he's suggesting that we should spend the first month of a new world to remake the combat system.
Well, we need to spend the first month of a new world delivering the hot, thick content that people want, right? We need patches every week. We need, I don't know, like maybe that is the case, Zented69, that I'm only getting a feedback from a very tiny niche of people. And I don't, also, I don't want to just say no. Maybe you're right here. Maybe you have a point. Maybe that, like, maybe combat changes are better made at some other point in the game, like or in the life cycle of the server. Maybe we should make combat changes in the, when should we make them then? In the early life of a world would be the good time. Why remake combat instead of continuous improvement like new cards and balancing?
Like new
Cards.
I mean, it's a good question, but I mean, fundamentally, I guess because we feel that it's the fundamentals of the combat system that are kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, that there's not least the 4 colors.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about the 4 colors that you have in combat. You have like 4 colors corresponding to various openings, as they're called. And I'm not sure, because one thing that I don't like about the current way to build is that you only really ever utilize one of the openings.
Yeah, exactly.
Like either you have a red deck or you have a green deck, but you never have a deck that is red and green. So
their interaction is really weird, and on the other hand, you constantly have the need to remove all of the openings instead.
Yeah, so you need for blocking maneuver thingies to remove them. I don't know, it's something about that. The meta deck for like 4 years has been red and blue. Right. Yeah, because cleave is blue as well, right? Or what do you use blue for other than, this is like Storm of Swords or something? No, that's not. The other 2 meta decks have been blue-green and green-yellow. Sting, alright, interesting.
Interesting indeed.
So you're saying the combat system is awesome, and Berthadin99 says, why do you think people are quitting the game?
That's a good question, one that we have asked ourselves, and I'm not sure we have a terribly good answer to it.
No, probably not. I mean, I think there's a combination of factors. I think there's a certain amount of like people play through the content of the game,
for sure,
or perceive themselves to as having played through the content of the game, and then they're done with it. I think that's one thing.
That's one thing. I think one other thing is the lack of spiraling.
Yeah, they cap out. They reach an effective cap and can't move beyond that, and thus they have no sensation of floating white numbers increasing, and thus they drop out. Chores is another thing that's probably also true. Like people start perceiving the daily farm labors as a chore. We've made that better now. Like harvesting is better now, and planting is easier on the chore front.
Then of course there are always the people who just play the beginning of the world to win and then quit when they lost.
Yeah.
And that's a good question how to. That's a really good question how to handle.
Yeah.
How to handle that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, ideally for those kinds of people, we'd probably have a reset every 3 months or something. But that's not really what the game is about, is it?
No, it's a fine balance there between, because I kind of want the game to be a longer experience as well, and to me, like, again, PvP is just like one feature of the game. It's not the feature of the game. I want people to have like massive villages and trading villages and all that jazz as well.
And
so I don't want the game.
If you have resets that are too common, and arguably I think there's a case to be made that the resets are already too common for that.
Yeah, I feel that the resets are, I've said this before as well, so nothing new I guess, but I feel that the resets are something of a drug, like, because every time we do a reset, the expectation for resets increases.
Mm-hmm.
So now people come to expect the next reset, and I mean, one of the most fun worlds we had was World 10, and it was also one that we ran for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know that permanent, like, recurring resets are something we need more of. John Fugati says you should really do a Valhalla stream one of these days with a few people who are known PvPers. It would give you a better idea of what's broken, what you perceive to be wrong with combat.
Well, I mean, I think you have more or less a plan to do that, don't you?
I do, but for another purpose. Like,
Yeah.
I am gonna have next year, maybe even January. We're gonna do a big stream where we're gonna try to catch the NVIDIA bug that people have been crashing on. So we're gonna
Because if we're talking about why people have been quitting, I don't think that's a small one.
I've been told that was a big one. Like a reason why many people engaged in the faction PvP stuff quit is on account of
The NVIDIA bug.
yeah, and the NVIDIA bug crashing in big combat scenes. So
For those not aware, the problem with the NVIDIA crash bug is that it has been really difficult to reproduce outside of actual real combat scenarios in which people don't really have the time to do debugging.
yeah. But I mean, another reason people quit is obviously PvP. I mean, there's no two ways about that. I don't think.
No, for sure.
Some people, not mentioning any particular names, have put it into practice to like extort people out of their little in-game hats and whatnot to spare their lives, their virtual lives, and that's probably not a pleasant experience for a lot of people. So that's a thing.
That is one reason for
Which
sure.
I'm not really. I mean, in some places, the barriers separating this little metaverse of ours from real life are really thin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you extort someone in game, like, is this illegal?
Yeah, it's a really
By
good question.
real-
I don't actually know how that would play out legally.
I have no idea how that would play out legally. Because, I mean, from our perspective, violence and conflict are intended parts of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also kind of intended that you can bring some goods from the store into the game, and it's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're being extorted in the game, it's part of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it also quickly translates into like real money transfers and
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one thing. I mean, hats are probably the most controversial band of that spectrum, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because on the more extreme end, we have apparently had people, threatening, extorting people over PayPal links and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is
Again,
something.
we're not mentioning any names as to who.
I wouldn't even know.
I had no idea what dastardly individual could even do such a thing.
But that's probably less controversially bad, at least.
Yeah. So.
And I mean, there is the case to be made that if someone extorts your hat from you.
Yeah.
Like, is that worse or better than if he had just killed you without giving you the possibility of paying?
Yeah, because that could easily have been the alternative. Like
Yeah.
he would have killed you quite simply.
Yeah.
So would that really be better? And Goxmanite says usually in-game items have no real world value, and that's how it's solved. Yeah, I mean you can say that, but it's objectively not true. Like
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they cost money, so so they have real world value.
Let's see. Can you build in a Bitcoin wallet support so we can extort players for Bitcoins? Sounds like a great idea. Yeah.
We have actually semi-seriously entertained the idea of adding Monero miner to the client for people who to gain store credit without paying real money.
Yep. we tossed that idea around. If you want it, we can do it. How about the idea that surfaced on the forum about being able to break a token into coins and vice versa? That was a neat idea. Tokens are probably a bit monolithic. They're probably.
I mean, yeah, but on the other hand, like, there's also the case to be made that tokens are already bad for trade. That idea has certainly been lifted, and
that idea has
it's
been
not like it has no merit.
That idea has been circulated.
Oh Lord.
But I mean, if it weren't tokens, it would be hats instead, right?
Well, I mean, there's that, but I mean, I think you can make the case that, you know, it's actually a good property, a positive property of the tokens that they are so relatively large, because that means they can't be used for every trade. I mean, if you could subdivide tokens, that would mean that that would be the de facto endgame currency.
Yeah, because another thing that we've kind of wanted in the game is like player-driven currencies.
And we often do have them,
Yeah.
but I suspect that if tokens were subdividable, that would quickly be lost.
No, probably. So, Average Benny says, usual reminder about fire particles. I agree that the fires could be more snazzy, sparkling particle type things.
For sure, is that a usual reminder? That's the first time I've heard about it.
He's been mentioning it a couple of times. He's brought it up before.
And the problem being that they are too lame. Not that they are poor performance or anything.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's a case to be made.
He wants them to be purtier.
There's a case to be made for sure. I don't think we use fire particles a whole lot though. I mean, there's basically
no. But that's precisely his point.
Oh, okay.
He wants
right.
us to use fire particles.
Okay, right.
Mount Pillow says again, I get that the option for violence is crucial to player freedom in H&H, but how do you balance the fundamental conflict between having a feature set that allows for creation building, and then also a feature set that allows for the destruction of other people's set creations buildings? Like hitting the Goldilocks zone here is the big challenge of the game, of designing the game, and I'm not sure it can be done, but
I'm also not sure it can't be done.
I'm also not, apodictically convinced that it can't be done. And also, I think those two features go hand in hand, which is my point the whole time. Like, building and destruction go hand in hand. Because if we have this mutable world, which people can affect, change, take control over, etc., then you need ways to remove other people's stuff, or we're gonna have problems with, building over other people's, purdy things and such. And I don't know what the alternative is, and I'm not like in any way, shape, or form saying really. I mean, I'm not even convinced that the current PvP solves the issue or whatever. But at least you can kill the old building, the palisade or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you can remove another player who's doing negative things to you. If that were not an option, like if you could not attack another player at all, like what is to stop someone?
I mean, imagine this during the early world, especially.
Yeah. I mean, early world, most people don't have rage. So I mean, this is what we have early world, and it's chaos. So, like in the first couple of hours of the game, when no one has rage, this is exactly what we have. Because you can walk up to people, look into their baskets, take their things, and they can't do anything about it. They can push you effeminately, and it does nothing. It just moves you away for 2 seconds and leaves a scent, allowing you to be tracked. So, I don't know. The game without PvP is what we have in the early stages of the world when no one has yet gotten rage. And
that being said, those would be very early stages. That's just the first couple of hours.
First couple of hours.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
But, I mean,
I'm just saying that a more interesting scenario is perhaps the following couple of days. Perhaps, not sure.
Yeah. What can we expect to become the biggest focus when Oko are finally finished? There are a couple of things. Like, first of all, Oko is one part of it. The next step on that ladder is freeform building.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are technically two separate features. So freeform building would be the immediate next thing. But blah blah blah. But the next big thing.
The next unrelated thing, perhaps.
The next unrelated big thing would probably be. I'm pretty excited about the rendering distance.
I mean, that being said, the freeform building is probably something that we would be viewing together.
Yeah.
So it would probably free up me for
another large scope programming project.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited about increasing the rendering distance.
That's certainly one thing.
I'd like to
parallelizing the server is another.
Parallelizing the server is probably the next one. That's probably more important. But increasing the rendering distance is something that I'm pretty excited about. I'd like to be able to look up at the horizon and see the sun, moon, and stars, and the glorious hearth above Haven.
That is certainly along the road to Haven being finalized, at least.
Yeah. So, because I think one of the reasons Haven fails a little bit as a walking simulator is precisely that you do not see the horizon. You're constantly looking at this little box with your character in it, and you can't see. There's no sense of distance, no sense of scale, or less at least. I'm not saying there's none, but
it would be better.
It would be better, I think, if we could see the horizon and see the sun, moon, stars, etc. And I'm pretty excited about building a cool skybox. So, blows in parallelizing, indeed, not paralyzing. He said parallelizing or paralyzing.
Parallelizing, yes. I believe that is what I said.
Bruder Bonus says you can actually change the camera with the console command. Not sure if you've heard of this.
Yes, but that doesn't increase the rendering distance, and that is exactly why the camera is called the bad cam.
But I'm talking about the rendering distance, sir. I'm not talking. I mean, I know you can pan the camera and watch the black void of nothing stare back into you. You can stare into it until it stares back. But that's not what I want to see, is it? I want to see the distant forests, the mountains, the horizon, all those nifty things. So there's that. From my own experience, what I could see in one of the biggest villages in this world, people usually quit mostly because of the burnout and infinite grind. Instead of having fun doing stuff for the village, you are forced to grind your stats to stay relevant in the combat. A lot of people don't have time to do that. So they choose to quit because they cannot have fun at combat anymore. Another thing on this world was random crashes and no PvP content. Thing walls didn't work out. Right? I mean, we've made some changes to thing walls and how they work, so I don't know.
Not in terms of PvP, though.
Yeah, we had a patch a couple of months back when we changed a lot of things. We changed we changed like their destruction mechanic and all kinds of things.
True.
So
yeah, that's probably true.
Butter.
There seemed to have been a lot of early problem with thing walls that we didn't really catch at all, I think.
Yeah. Moflock. Like, I love this game. There is none other MMO that can give you genuine encounters, bad or good. Saying that, thank you for the good times. Thank you, sir. Those are kind words. That's the feeling that when Haven is at its best, I think that's the feeling it delivers, and that's my
exactly.
My
I mean that's kind of the thing with PvP, though, isn't it? I mean, there have certainly been encounters in the game that are quite unparalleled in other games. Let's just say.
For sure. Like my best stories from the game are usually PvP related. Like because that's what kind of gets, gives you a little bit of a pulse and such like. So. PvP I think is...
I'll say though that, I mean, I have been very spared from bad PvP encounters altogether.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I mean, you've had some at least. I think I pretty much had none.
Didn't some guy force you out of your village recently?
Yeah, sure, but that wasn't really a PvP encounter, I don't think. I mean, it wasn't actual combat, it's not like I was killed or anything.
Altiox says, making PvP so punishing reduces the quantity of those encounters. PvP is less punishing than it has ever been in this game. Like, death is barely a thing anymore. Like, I imagine that you shouldn't die that often, unless there are interactions here that I'm unaware of. Like, if you go out fully healed, you should probably not die to a PvP encounter, pretty much
more or less, at least. I think it's possible to kill with murderous raging cleave and whatnot, but...
I'm sure it's possible, but I don't know how easy that is. And B, even if you die, you get like massive stats back. You get, these days you even get your thing walls back. We recently changed that, made death less of an issue.
Even less relevant?
Making death even less relevant. We gave you your combat experience. You can inherit your combat experiences or combat lore knowledge thingies effectively. So I don't know. Is PvP really that punishing? I mean, full loot is a thing. You do lose your gear. So that.
But we tried to change that, and everyone hated that.
That is also true. So I don't know. Zented69. No, I'm not falling for your stupid attempt to get me to pronounce words that I'm not supposed to pronounce. But I invite you to reflect on the absurdity of certain words not being possible to say on live streams. I think that's a little bit crazy and reflective of a crazy time that we live in. No Indicator says, what do my favorite devs think about adding a leaderboard to the game? There are many possibilities like meteorite or collected trophies, etc. How do we feel about leaderboards?
I think it's one of those things that you aren't entirely agreed upon. I think you're more open to it than I am.
Probably. I don't know. I don't know. How do I feel about leaderboards? I mean, it wouldn't be that much of a game. Like, it wouldn't reveal that much about the game, really, would it?
Well, I mean, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, one of the things I kind of like about the game is that you don't strictly know if there's someone better out there. Someone out there better than you.
Yeah, that's
you never know that you're number one.
Yeah.
And that's something I kind of like about the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's probably true that it's not like you couldn't make the leaderboards opt in.
Yeah.
So,
but then people wouldn't use them. I mean, I think if
I think they would.
I mean, maybe
the stuff that they added in, say, the leaderboards they added in Salem are all opt in. In fact.
Are they?
Yep.
All right, ballers. Maybe we could make opt-in leaderboards. I would mind that less.
I'd probably mind that less.
How do you feel about opt-in leaderboards?
There's also the case to be made, I think, that perhaps leaderboards could at least be more fun to have as a kind of final score in an ended world.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if there was like a boasting mechanic. Like, say you make a boast, and this is effectively you reporting for duty on the leaderboard. Like you boast of the great fish that you caught or whatever. Make a boast to the world, and then you're placed on the leaderboard.
I mean, to be fair, this is perhaps something that could be integrated into the further development of the quest giver lore that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Salem had leaderboards, and they were effing great, says Hasse Kebab.
You think so?
He seems to be that seems to be his opinion.
I mean, it's not like I can't see it at all. I just I guess it's my typical opinion of the locality of the world.
Yeah. Lawnfear777 says, by the way, thanks for the super interesting game, but she takes a lot of time to grind. There are plans to add automation to somehow facilitate the routine. I think a lot of players have taken matters into their own hands and added automation to facilitate the routine, as it were.
They have, for sure. That is something that has been known to happen.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Haven takes a long time, but I think you have to, the MMO, you have to understand the nature of the beast. Because, like, an MMO kind of by definition needs to be infinite. Like, you need to be able to play it infinitely. So we need to have infinite content, because otherwise you get bored with the content that is in the game, or infinite content in...
Yeah, I mean, to be sure, that is one of the most challenging aspects of making an MMO, in that, I mean, there's particularly the case that, some people are able to just plow a lot more time into the game.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to design the game in such a way that doesn't give an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, arguably it should give an advantage.
Yeah, but I mean, you could also make the case that it's kind of cancer when it's just player time.
Oh, for sure. For sure, which is why we have various kind of timers and whatnot. And those aren't optimal either, because, like, if you have limiting timers deciding when, then you can never catch up. That's the kind of inverse problem there, is that, like, okay, so Curio studies, for example, is heavily dependent on, like, just time passing.
Yeah, exactly.
And which means that, like, if you are both studying the same things, then you can quite literally never catch up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also not great. Mm-hmm. So, like...
I mean, we've actually had this concrete complaint that from some group of players that joined, I think, kind of midway through the world, and really played, really grinded heavily. And they were annoyed at all the timers that they could never catch up.
Yeah.
So that I'm just saying that is certainly one of the more challenging aspects of making an MMO.
Yep. For sure. So Schattengänger says, "Good evening, people. Good evening, Schattengänger.
Good evening and Merry Christmas."
And Merry Christmas indeed. Now, a real suggestion: add weight to fish tooltip. If we're gonna have leaderboards for fish, I suppose we need the weight for fish as well. So that would be fun. Sif Muna says, do you have any plans to rework the hunger system since Ravenous is quickly lost by new players but maintained indefinitely by hardcore players?
We have been talking about it lately. I think there is consensus among the two of us that we are more open to removing hunger now that satiation is working somewhat well.
Yeah.
But it's not entirely trivial either.
Yeah.
It's not like it doesn't fill any purpose either. But yeah, the more than 100% parts of the hunger meter are kind of debatable.
Yeah, hunger has been on at least my radar, and we had a discussion about it the other week, and I would be surprised if when we do decide to move to a new world, I would be very surprised if we made no changes.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
So I'm also.
I mean, that being said, I think that may depend. I guess it depends on what we decide to do, but that is typically one of those things we would probably try in an existing world.
Right. Yeah, we could perhaps make that change in this world, but yeah, I don't know. Especially if it's technically more lenient, then we can certainly make the change to this world. So, yeah. Asandra says, considering addressing how ridiculous and bot-intensive whales, truffles, salt, and pepper are, and how they affect people who don't bot. This is probably true. Truffles, I could just see repurposing those, but like, I don't know. It's kind of a. Truffles are obviously designed and implemented from the. They exist in real life, and therefore they should be in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
In real life, there are truffle pigs, therefore there should be truffle pigs in the game.
Exactly.
But is the actual mechanic of walking your pig actually fun?
Debatable, perhaps.
Debatable, perhaps. So the question there is like, and arguably truffles are, they have too broad of a scope of utility, right? I think that case could be made. Like, you can use them on all your food.
Yeah, perhaps.
That's probably not good.
Perhaps they should just be an ingredient.
Yeah, like maybe they should just be normal mushrooms, quite simply. But then there's like, you kind of want them to be good because you took the time and effort to walk your pig.
To be sure.
But it's also like a foraging mechanic, and foraging mechanics are kind of inherently problematic because they lead to bots, and because no one is actually going to walk their pig seriously, because like if you want truffles en masse, then you're going to have a bot that walks the pig, because who wants to walk the pig? If you know what I mean. I have no idea what I mean myself. But it seemed like there could be innuendo there. But
I did not see that innuendo, I must admit.
But yeah, so I don't know. Should we just what should we do about that? I mean, truffle pigs are fun.
Obviously, we can't remove content.
This is certainly true. Content clearly cannot be removed, so it would have to be repurposed somehow. There's even a truffle snout quality indicator, so I mean, removing it would be like just completely out of the question.
Absurd.
Yeah. And how do we feel about pepper then?
I mean, it's a good question what to think of it as a spice. Like we said earlier, I don't think we were really aware that the main use of pepper was as a spice.
No.
I think we were very much under the impression that it was sprinkled.
Yeah.
And if it is used as a spice, then perhaps it should just give bum burn that way too. It's not like you couldn't make the case.
Or just maybe nerf it, but then again, like nerf everything into
mediocrity.
Yeah, but I don't know. Farming is also kind of bot-wise problematic.
Yeah, farming is
because it's kind of easy to set up a bot to just do all the farming.
It lends itself very well to it.
Yeah,
for sure.
So maybe one could, I don't know. I haven't Googled pepper farming in any recent history. But maybe one could like limit it by some other less easy to get resource. Like maybe the limiting resource should.
Perhaps, but I mean, it's not like we haven't been discussing farming in general a lot lately as well.
Sure.
Perhaps without any good conclusions, but nevertheless.
Yeah.
I mean, farming is in kind of a weird place in that it's very automatic.
Snuggles Snails suggested that we could make it so that pepper doesn't increase, or maybe he was talking about truffles, doesn't increase the total FEPS, but rather pushes it to something specific.
Perhaps.
That's an idea. What do you think about adding weekly increased stat cap? Let's say at the world start it would be 500 and every week it would increase by 50. The problem of infinite grinding could disappear. So I think there would be way more PvP with the current fast travel.
I mean, fundamentally, I don't think it is. I don't think it's fundamentally different from actual stat caps, from permanent stat caps. I mean, like, if you have the time to do that, and then have 90% of your playable time left, then you'll just do that on 10 characters instead.
If you care, or alternatively, you will quit. That's another alternative. But I'm not thrilled about stat caps, and I think also one of the problems that stat caps kind of fail to address is that a new player who starts is not aided in any way, shape, or form by this. He still has that same catch-up gap.
If we're talking about moving stat caps.
Yeah, he still has that same catch-up gap. Like, okay, so you're moving the goalpost all the time, but like the gap is still
well, I mean, I guess the idea here would be at least that the goalposts move slower than the new player is. But.
And also, I don't know. There are stats that matter a lot in combat, like strength and constitution are the big ones. But agility, melee combat, unarmed combat, those scale pretty favorably these days for a lower static player.
For sure.
I mean, within 2x stats, you are effectively equal.
At least in terms of the skill values.
And at least in terms of the skill values. So I don't know, and that was probably, that was added intentionally so that grinding the stats should matter less. It would be great if we could do something similar for strength and constitution, I suppose.
Yeah, it would. I mean, we had an attempt to do that the last world, I think, and it was not great.
It was not. Harbinger Bjorn says, on adding longevity to the game and fixing the declining login numbers, achievements when? I don't know, how do you feel about achievements?
How do I feel about achievements? Not sure I would play for them.
I'm not opposed to them. I
don't think I'm opposed to them either. I mean, if anything, it's not like you couldn't make the case that experiences are effectively achievements. And, to be sure, I wouldn't mind adding more of those.
Yeah, no. But I think one of the key things is that in the term achievement is that they want meta progression. That is to say, they want something that they can keep over several worlds. So that, okay, this world I don't have to grind that achievement one more time. Like, they want this to be account bound rather than character bound.
Right. I guess I can see that.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'll go out and say that I'm not opposed to it. Like, there's no real reason, I guess, not to have achievements.
I mean, that being said, even then we could just make the account keep track of the experience that any character on it has had.
Yeah, no, I thought about it the other day, and the similarity between experiences and achievements certainly occurred to me. So maybe because there are certainly a lot of the experiences that should be achievements because they are so relatively rare. So we could probably tie those together, and I don't know. I'm not at all opposed to achievements. We can do that. I mean, if people are excited about that and want achievements, I think there's no real reason not to add it. So,
arguably, at least, I'm not opposed to them either.
I think
I guess I just question how big of a deal it is, but I don't know if other people like them. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah. Drunken Jacob says, can you stop adding new food? There's already millions of possibilities. If I'm correct, around 600k types of autumn steaks, 99% probably useless. Can we just stop there? I doubt there is a way to fix this at this point, but the whole system is insanely overwhelming for new players. Is it really?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of ambitions those new players have.
Yeah.
But you know, I would think that most new players just craft whatever foods they can get their hands on,
Yeah.
eat it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't. I mean, unless you come into the game with the ambition that you're going to win the server.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it was intended to play, like, or that's certainly how I largely play it. I just make some food.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
So occasionally I'll find
Yes,
a great recipe.
it is certainly true that I don't make the optimal food,
Yeah, definitely.
but I don't care that much.
No, me neither. So it doesn't bother my play. I mean, I like that play style. I don't, if you want, or if you're doing something more competitive, then that's fine with me. But I don't know. Like I don't know. I suppose like let's assume that you want to be perfectly min maxing and you want to be an autist about this. Someone suggested to me once that I shouldn't use the word autist as something negative, but
I don't think we do.
I don't think we do. I don't like
I've also experienced that some people seem to believe that we use it as a negative term, but that's not the intention at all. I think it's kind of endearing. I mean,
exactly. Someone who's just hyper focused on something and really wants to get the most out of it. Mm-hmm. But in any event, let's say that you are a super min-maxer and you want to get the most out of the game and you want to be super competitive and blah blah blah. Do you then have to craft all the variants of food to find out which foods are the goodest? I suppose you do. Do you?
I mean, I suppose you do, but what is the alternative, that you just go to the wiki and look up the best food anyway?
I think there's probably, from the competitive standpoint, I think what they want is a clear line of progression to the top. Like they want it to be well defined, I think. Like in StarCraft, for example, it's pretty well defined how you play optimally, so to speak. Or maybe it's not, but like it's at least it's not just a case of testing through 600k million combinations. I don't know.
I mean, it's not like there aren't good questions involved here. It's not like I'm necessarily. I don't necessarily think that the current way that the crafting buffs work are the ultimate and perfect solution.
It is a bit too random. Like you can get very unexpected results. So that much is true.
Then on the other hand, I don't really think it should be completely trivial to predict the results either.
No.
I mean, I think it's fair to say at least that it would be. I think the system would be less fun if there weren't, these unexpected combinations that are unexpectedly good.
Yeah. Shouldn't you want the LARPers to be as strong as possible relative to the fighters? Probably, but I mean.
But I don't think that's going to happen anyway.
No, that's also a good case to be made. But I think. I've been pretty. I think positively of the change that we did to the combat stat comparison, for example, where stats effectively do not matter that much. Like, stats matter in the sense that you do need to catch up, but only within a factor of like 0.25.
A factor of 2 in this case, I'm pretty sure.
Sure, a factor of 2.
But yeah.
No, sorry, a factor of 2,
Yeah.
So, I kind of think that change is positive, and I think like I haven't excluded.
I also think so, and it's also my impression that it has been well received.
Yeah. So I kind of agree that it sucks if you have to do too much of food, spreadsheet Excel gaming to like eat optimally. But I think the solution could perhaps be to make stats matter less, or have like a relative, compare within like a factor of 2 or whatever. I mean, that solution seems more attractive to me than remove everything and make 5, 10 recipes that is all you can create. Usually, when I add a recipe, I add it because I perceived a need for it. Like when I add a new food recipe, it's usually because I found my base overflowing with something and wanted something to make from it. So to me, it's like, and that suits my playstyle, and that's how I play the game. I play the game largely as a farming simulator, and I want to be able to make.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm having a hard time imagining the game being in a greater place because you can make fewer foods.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it from the PvP angle. Like, if you feel you have to do spreadsheet Excel calculations to find the optimal food, then I agree that that is probably not the greatest. But I think we can address that problem in other ways rather than just removing everything, which seems to be the standard solution these people have for problems. But I don't know. Rambling. Boris Johnson, 1964, says, "Thank you for the great game." You're welcome, Boris Johnson. Thank you for joining in on the Christmas stream and for for those kind words. That's very kind of you. What the Felix says, "Stats already don't matter much. Make food more straightforward. It's hard to find anything decent without third-party databases."
But if stats don't matter, why do you care about food that much?
Yeah, exactly. If stats don't matter, why do you care so much about food? Harbinger Bjorn says, "I think the biggest weird thing about this game is that it's a massive sandbox game with thousands of different things to do and millions of foods and dozens of jobs and character archetypes, but only one way to win. You can't ever play just the way you want and be perfectly safe and enjoy the game. You're always in danger of getting screwed by the people who choose to play like snail. The one way to win." I don't know what you mean by win here. I win the game every day by playing it. But again, to me, like a part of the charm of being out riding on a dark and stormy night is that there could be bad people out there. That's like a part of what makes it exciting, I suppose. I mean, I like that part, like especially.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps what he's complaining about is that I'm not sure I would call it complaint, perhaps per se, but nevertheless, what he's saying is that there should perhaps be other game modes that are more awarded, I guess. Like, I don't know, trading or something.
Sure, but
yeah, I'm not sure what he's saying to be fair, but I guess I can see some kind of case being made that killing other people is the only visually obvious way that one wins in the game, but not sure about that. It's not like you don't win every time you clear a dungeon or something.
Yeah. Altiox says, "I love running into players and just dying because there's 3 of them and 1 of me. It's very fun to not have any recourse to being down other than to not have left my base in the first place."
I think, to be fair, one of the things that really is lacking about the current combat system is the basic flight and pursuit mechanic.
Arguably.
Which is also the whole reason why some mounts and whatnot are considered OP in combat, I think.
3 of them, 1 of you, and you have 1/10 the stats of 1 of them. Yeah.
That being said, I mean, the ideal solution to all of these problems would be if we could somehow incentivize people to attack others of their own stature.
Yeah.
Not sure if that is possible, but I think that would be the ideal solution.
For sure.
There is perhaps, I mean, I don't know what the consensus on scrying has become since it was added.
Since no one can find Mandrake, I don't think there's.
Yeah, there's that for sure. There's that's an aspect of it.
Yeah.
But there seems to be some idea, I think, even among those discussing it, that having those kinds of tracking mechanics may disincentivize stronger PV and stronger players from attacking nobs.
Yeah.
Because that subjects them to more danger from other strong players. Not sure if that will actually play out or not, but
Yeah, and I mean also like, okay, so three of them, one of me. I'm always outnumbered. I'm always losing. Like, I don't know. What is the suggestion? What is the creative suggestion for how to fix that? Like, what would you?
I mean, arguably that's our job, though. But
no, sure, to be sure, but like, I don't know. I'm fine with admitting that I don't have a great idea for how to fix that problem to the extent that it is a problem. I think, I don't know, faction ballooning has become more of a thing in the later worlds than I perceived that it used to be. Like, factions seem to tend to be larger-ish.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that is why we have been discussing realm buffs, right?
Yeah, because it's been theorized that realm buffs and meteorites and mechanics like that, effectively, I don't know, maybe all the PvP mechanics, are things that kind of heavily incentivize.
I think realm buffs have been one of the more strongly quoted mechanics, at least.
Yeah.
Not sure how we arrived at faction ballooning, though.
Goxmanite says, don't you have to play through endgame content to understand if it works or not?
Well, I mean, arguably, but there's also only so much time in the day to both play at the ultimate autist level and develop the game.
Exactly. I think it's a bit of a reach to do both. So, and also, like, I mean, we have access to a dev server, so it's not like we have no idea how trolls work or whatever. Sure. Like, I mean, I can spawn as many trolls as I want. So, Trollix HNH says, it would be fun to have some type of way to win a fight based on skill while being outnumbered like that. But I think it's pretty unrealistic.
Yeah, I mean, that for sure that is true. But I mean, if this is a poor knob with going about alone in the forest with a tenth of the stats of the three people attacking him, I think it's fair to say that they are probably more skilled too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but it would be fun if you, on the odd occasion, when you are more skilled than they are, could do something with that skill.
For sure, if you could leverage that. And like I said, I do think that the flight and pursuit mechanic is probably the weakest part of the current combat system.
Yeah, and I would love if there were more skill in the fighting system. I would love it if you could.
For sure.
And this was somewhat possible in Legacy, as Trollix said in the chat above here. Like,
it was also more possible before we had the push out.
Yeah. So, burpy derp, but that kind of comes back to the question of the combat system and whatnot, and we've kind of spent time discussing that already. I imagine something like large groups of players moving together might scare birds, which could alert a pathetic solo noob that something dangerous this way comes. That is not a bad idea. Like, you know, being able to say, hear the sound of horses or whatever.
Yeah, in actual fact, that's something I don't think I've actually ever discussed this with you, but it's something that I have been thinking of since Legacy, actually. Yeah. That the sound of horses should be audible from from further distances.
That's a good idea.
And it is a development that overlaps with, in my mind at least, in my plan for it, it overlaps with longer view distances.
Yeah.
There are common points here.
Some sort of, I mean, other kind of things that I've been thinking about at times is like, what if you could like duck into the bushes and hide?
Yeah, I mean, we even had that mechanic for a while.
Yeah, maybe we did with one of the things you could run over and
exactly
become invisible.
Yep.
So, Harvey, I don't know. I don't know if that was a good question. Zafarot says, I'd like to see non-LARP incentives for forming agreements and alliances with other players. I think there are plenty of agreements and alliances between various
exactly.
groups of players.
That is my impression as well.
I'm not too worried about that. Um, um,
If anything, faction ballooning seems to indicate that there are too many reasons to
form alliances and agreements. Is the ongoing Mandrake spawning issue a result of a ghost change you made at the end of last world? Due to my graveyard, you didn't visit that spawned too many Mandrakes. No.
No.
We have not.
If anything, there seems to be some bug involved with the Mandrake spawning. I can tell from some of the values that there is some sort of bug, some behavior that I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I haven't been able to find the root cause of it yet. But I added a debug message last time we patched, which hopefully can help me bring some clarity into that.
Word up. John Fugati asks, what does Loftar think is wrong with the chase/flee mechanics?
Well, I mean, fundamentally the fact that it's basically just forever.
Running.
There's no. I mean, there are no differentiating factors, or however you would express that idea, I guess. I mean,
that isn't true though. We have these little wind things that you can run on.
Yeah, sure, but they're pretty minor in the end anyway. And in particular,
I don't think they're minor. I think they're
not necessarily minor, but I don't really think it changes the fact that you can't really meaningfully ever truly outrun someone, because the pursuer always has the advantage. Like, as long as you're not running in a straight line, he will be catching up gradually.
Not if you hit all the speed buffs, I don't think. Like if you're,
I'm not sure they're common enough for that. But even if they were, I'm not sure that mechanic is really all that fun and engaging. And I mean, it obviously has to do with the whole Boolean speed part of it.
Yeah.
Like if the other party is a fraction of a running step faster than you, then he basically wins, and otherwise, if he's a fraction slower than you, then you win.
Harbinger Bjorn says, have you considered opt-in PvP? Yes, we've spent like a better part of an hour discussing opt-in PvP on this stream, but where only people who want to be criminals are eligible for being engaged with PvP. So effectively a non-PvP server. Again, like the question then is like, what about combat or conflict resolution? Like if I make an alt and I set it to no PvP, please, and then I use that alt to go build a palisade around your village, how do you stop me from doing that? How is the conflict between us? How is that resolved? If I can't attack the player doing that, I think that's the question. So, and I think that's the question that needs to be addressed to anyone suggesting a non-PvP world. I think the alternative manner of conflict resolution needs to be addressed, because I think that the Grief Fest that is going to be the no PvP server needs conflict resolution, and I don't think you can credibly make a suggestion for a non-PvP server without answering this question. So that's my kind of take on it. I think conflict resolution is a question that demands an answer, I think. So either answer that question or and I don't see an alternative to fighting other than maybe game moderators, and game moderators are unacceptable to me.
Indeed.
So because that would be an admission of defeat in the entire point of the game, I feel. So I'm not thrilled about that. So I don't know. Those are
Let's just say bureaucracy is not something that I think appeals very much to either of us.
No, it's not our thing. And it's like, I don't know. We've had moderators at time, but I find that on the forums and such, But I find that a lot of the controversial decisions get appealed to me anyway, and I kind of don't want to deal with it. And I'm not community management is not my forte in life. I don't think so. I don't know. So and having the added layer of okay, so we have a class of people who are to presumably moderate the game and also play it at the same time. That is a conflict of interest that is just wild. So you'd have to have.
I can't even imagine all the complaints that we would get about game moderator partiality.
Exactly.
To be sure.
You would have to have. Basically paid staff to do game moderation, I think, and who wants that? Like, it's just not.
I mean, who wants a game that is basically a bureaucracy simulation?
Yeah, exactly. Because it also every time we intervene in the game, it then becomes a question of playing us instead of the game. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It becomes a question of lawyering with us, sending us PMs, convincing us of things.
Every intervention we've made in the game has never been, I mean, uncontroversially good. I think it's safe to say, at least.
No, definitely. So and yeah. So there we go. Not thrilled about that. Trollex says, I think the problem with conflict resolution is that the people who would like their conflict resolved aren't strong enough to actually resolve them, and the people who are causing them are mainly doing so from a position of power.
To be sure.
Definitely. I mean, goes without saying that the people who are going to get power are the people who want power, who have a strong will to power, who will strive for power, who will, do all the things required. And those people, they probably want the power because they want to use it against other people. So,
I mean, that being said, it's not like we've never had any instances of
vigilante type action. So I don't know. But it's also kind of the perennial problem that offense is always easier than defense. Like with defense, you need to be right every time. An offending party only needs to get lucky once, and to do what they do. So it's difficult. Thank you, by the way, TrollXH&H, for the wonderful post that you did on spiraling and all the industries and all that jazz. We read through it and discussed it.
It was inspiring.
It was inspiring. It was a really good wall of text, and we read it through pretty much all of it. So we take it to heart and will consider. We really appreciated that post. Is moderation of trolling really necessary, though? You already have limitations in place for building shit too close to somebody else to prevent this. Couldn't you just ramp up these features?
I mean, is a 50 map grid maze that you have to navigate out of your village really that much greater than having it surrounded by palisade?
I don't know, man. It's like I don't know. It's the same when people say like you should remove botting, and it's like, okay, my primary level knows that I can't remove botting. It's impossible, right? So. But then there's always a second layer, is like where I want to doubt myself and say like, okay, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe this assumption is wrong. Maybe I should question it. And I sense a similar dynamic here, where it's like, okay, remove PvP, and it's like, I know this is not going to work. But then I'm like, but do I really know that? And I question myself.
But I mean, the thing is also like, even if you remove PvP, would that really be fun?
Would that be fun? Is that the game that you want to play? Like, do you want to play Haven without PvP? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say I don't. I usually play a peaceful. My experience.
I mean, like I said, I've never actually been involved in PvP almost at all. I think, but the point is just what kind of in-game politics does that leave you with?
Yeah. None. Or I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, It seems to me that the best case you could construct here is basically one where people are effectively just goldfishing the game and playing separate
I think
servers.
what you're effectively asking for then is private servers.
Yeah.
That I think that's a much better solution in that case. If that's the road that you want to go, you are suggesting private servers. So, and that way would be more. That would seem more plausible to me.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so. I don't know. If you're going to argue for anything, I think you should be arguing for private servers in that case, because
that then, seems to be what you really want.
Yeah, because if you just want to goldfish the experience anyway, then that's effectively what you're asking for. And private servers, that's a big topic, and it's not. I'm not, completely opposed to private servers, but it's a big deal, and I don't.
I think it's also safe to say that we're always at least critical of anything that would bifurcate the player base.
For sure. Yeah, definitely, but yeah.
It would need a fairly strong argument to the other point, at least.
Yeah, I mean that would effectively, be to some extent like dropping the MMO ambition for the game,
yeah.
And basically just saying that we're building a crafting game that you can play with your friends.
Mm.
So, and I'm sure that could be fun, and I'm not necessarily because one thing here when running an MMO is that we have to not only develop the game but also maintain the environment, and I'm not 100% convinced that we're doing the greatest job imaginable with running the environment, and maybe there's a case to be made there for private servers. So I don't believe in removing PvP. I know it's not going to work. I know it's going to be a train wreck, and I'm just not excited about it. Even if it were to succeed, I'm not sure I want to play the game that I have at the end of that.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Again, what you really end up with at the end of that.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of in-game politics, I think it wouldn't really be Haven if there were no politics.
Exactly. I think that to me removes a very core part of the MMORPG aspect. The reason this game is an MMO is that, having that, multiplayer experience, having that.
I mean, again, having a meaningful, lasting impact on the world. Yeah. I think that needs to involve politics in some way. Yeah. Needs to be able to involve politics at least.
I'd like to think. I don't know. I'm not gonna be. I don't know. I don't want to just shoot people down and say that I'm right, or.
I don't necessarily want to dismiss the idea entirely, but I'm.
But I kind of want to dismiss the idea.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't.
It just doesn't seem like the game that we really want to develop.
No, I don't. I don't really see that game. I don't. Again, I don't see how. And I still kind of feel that the question remains unanswered. Like, what is the alternative means of conflict resolution then? I mean,
because it really does seem to me that it would almost have to end up with some sort of game moderation.
I don't know what the alternative is, at least. That being said, we can certainly, I mean...
It's not like we couldn't entertain the idea. I mean, if someone were to present a vision or something, it's not like I wouldn't read it.
Yeah, for sure. You guys should listen to this stream afterwards and listen to the incredible shit that you allow yourselves to say in defense of this idea, comparing yourselves to other MMOs, talking about in-game politics. You are so far removed from the wants of the vast majority of the player base at this point, it's honestly just sad as F. Ouch. Well...
Not sure what to say to that, though.
Yeah, not sure what to say to that. Again, I don't really mean to just dismiss what you say. I don't know. What did we say that provoked that reaction? Maybe I'm being autistic. I don't understand why you're mad at me. So, sorry if you're mad, but I don't understand why. So, no Indicator says, what about having only real time, only game time for everything instead of mixing them?
Yeah, we've been discussing that lately. Even I think the mixing of them is a real problem for sure. There are, I think, not sure exactly what to say. I mean, fundamentally, it's just that we wanted to have 24 in-game hours per 24 per in-game day.
Yeah.
That's the original reason, but it's not like it couldn't be. I have been considering even more strongly lately to part with that idea. Let's just say, because it is kind of dumb, especially the fact that we're mixing in-game and real life.
Yeah, it's very
time
dumb.
specifications. It's very confusing, and even I don't always know which is which, and that's not particularly good.
No. And so, long story short, there are several internal definitions that are specified in terms of in-game time, which would look ugly if we just straight up converted them to real life time. And
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't just we couldn't really just convert it as it is, because the time factor isn't exactly 3, so we'd end up with really ugly values everywhere.
Yeah.
So so at the very least, we'd have to redefine everything.
Yeah.
Everything, pretty much. I've also had a slight ambition. I think I mentioned this on the forums, that if we were to do some kind of Salem-style expedition, which is something we've talked about but aren't at all committed to.
Yeah.
It's not obviously a good idea, but if we were to do something like that, I've been entertaining the idea that I would speed up the time factor, basically. And in that case, that would require some separate definition of in-game time, at least, which interacts with the whole thing.
Yeah. Vsor says, I agree PvP is important, but Darwinism has left us with a very small, mostly bad community. That being said, I love the game and I'm appreciative of your work. Thank you. That's kind of you to say so. I mean, I don't want to agree with you and call the community mostly bad, because I think that's a bit unfair. But I have
to say that I have very few experiences with this bad community. To be honest, most of my interactions with other players have been mostly positive.
Yeah, I have plenty of positive experience as well. I have a bit of a mixed bag, but I don't know that the community is more cancerous than any other online community. Certain subsections are of it, perhaps. But I mean,
I have been left wondering sometimes whether the people who there do seem to be some people who are more actively subject to bad experience, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been wondering to what extent that is just bad luck and to what extent they kind of invite it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a case to be made for kind of laying low so you don't attract trouble.
For sure. But also, it's definitely going to be the case that when you have a negative experience in this game, it can be a really negative experience.
For sure.
So, and I'm not unsympathetic to that.
That being said, I also think that the ability to have negative experiences isn't strictly a bad thing, so to speak.
No, but I could see why it would lead to
for sure.
To people quitting and whatnot. So.
For sure.
Let's see.
I mean, to be sure, it would be great if losing could be more fun.
Yeah,
at the very least.
I think their angry point is that with like a dozen people walking the earth as demigods with thousands of points in their combat stats, there are no politics. With power imbalances as heavy as they are, there can be no negotiations, only annihilations. There are certainly power imbalances, or power...
It's certainly not as if that is completely untrue.
No.
But I'm also not... I mean, to be sure, the whole Infinigrind thing is... it's a design problem, to be sure.
Yeah.
It's not particularly trivial to balance that with everything.
It is not.
But it's also not really obvious what the good alternative would be. And
yeah, I mean, there must be a reason to log in that is not PvP related, so to speak. I mean, we kind of need the farming mechanics and whatnot for there to be, and the building mechanics and the blah blah blah, and the level up mechanics for there to be floating white numbers to chase for the person who doesn't want to fight, or for anyone to log in and have a normal peaceful existence in the game. That kind of default mode needs to exist, and it needs to allow the player to progress, and that being said, I think one of the more fruitful ways that we could perhaps approach the problem is to make stats matter less, and when comparing with other players, like in combat or whatnot. I think that changed.
That is certainly a valid way to go. I also think, honestly, it would be great if high-level characters died more often.
Arguably, I mean, you could perhaps make the case. If they died at all, perhaps.
Yeah, indeed.
That's the thing, though. It's never subjugation. Griefing is normalized to the point that if you lose a fight to a PvP faction, they're scorching the earth and destroying everything you have. That is true.
Mm.
That is certainly true, and I'm very open to suggestions that could change that. I'll put it that way. Snapco says, any plans to change terraforming? It's a huge chore for anyone who is starting to plan out his patch of land. Consumes too much stamina and punishes honest players while everyone else just creates 10 to 15 naked alts.
We've been over this, haven't we?
I suppose we have. I don't know. I terraformed a fair bit this world, and I found that my experience was at least okay, but maybe I'm pain tolerant, so I don't know.
I've also been arguing a lot that people are perhaps a bit needlessly OCD about the flatness of their base.
The base needs to be flat. There's no doubt about it. Let there be no doubt.
Indeed, we have been over this.
Mighty Sheep says, yeah, it feels like only 5% of player base even understand how to PvP. Stats or gear don't even enter the picture. Snuggle Snail H&H says he says, first, you're focusing way too much about stats. Most players have never meaningfully been in a PvP situation. Most players don't know how to use defenses and walk away. No, that's probably also true.
I mean, that is certainly true. It would be great, I think, if PvP were more accessible.
Yeah.
So that you could have encounters in it that aren't necessarily... But I mean, on the other hand, it's not... I mean, I was about to say they're not lethal, but they aren't already.
Yeah.
So...
Mighty Sheep says, I wish high-level characters died more often too. Not sure if there's sinister innuendo there, but it could be. Vsor says, I noticed a couple of Unreal World references in the game. Did this start as an attempt to make multiplayer URV? Yeah, URV was certainly one of the inspirations for Haven. I played the living shit out of URV for a good while there, and it was one of the greatest games that... It's still one of my top, I don't know what, 20 games at least. So
I haven't played it though.
You should play it.
I know.
I don't know that you should play it perhaps, but I played it and I loved it. So for sure, that's a great game. Shout out to my Finnish brethren who built the game. It's a really good game. New players are super disadvantaged for PvP death because they get a bunch of wounds from dumb shit. PvP wounds and PvE wounds should almost be separate, or make some of the dumb wounds just debuffs and not HHP damage. Could be a good case to be made there. The nub walks around with a couple of thorns in the foot effectively, and he dies to that. So that you probably have a case there. You should definitely try to flatten out a parcel of land on your own. That would be a great experience to you and your 300% food bonus. Yeah, I just gimped my food bonus and just carried on with work. So, but again, I agree that the 300% food bonus, especially how it interacts with energy, is not optimal. So that should probably change. Make high-level characters become older and suffer from diseases. I don't know that decay is a fun mechanic, but thank you for suggesting. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, we've been going for 2 hours, so I think we're gonna try to bring this to an end. Bring it to an end.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up, exactly. So that was a pretty intense and hopefully somewhat productive discussion. I'm very grateful to everyone who came and asked all the fun questions.
Hard questions.
All the tough questions. Yeah, there were some tough questions being asked tonight, sir. Oof. Rough crowd. Oof. There was fire and brimstone in the air tonight. But I enjoyed it. Same discussion we have every stream. Yes, definitely, but I think that's because the discussion attacks the fundamental design problems of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the only thing to do is keep discussing it, I guess, or keep working on it, keep whacking away at it, and trying to make the game a little bit better with every patch, which is what we try to do. Appearances to the contrary notwithstanding. So, yeah, all right, guys, thank you all so much for tonight. Me and Loftar are heading out for some Christmas, New Year's R&R. I hope you do as well, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. And I wish you all the best. Remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. And I hope you get to spend Christmas and New Year's with your families, and that you're all doing well both in and out of game, and that we will see you back in Haven on the other side of the next year in 2022. From all of us to all of you, a very Merry Christmas. Take care, guys. Thank you for tonight. Ta-ta.